Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. If you are on your lunch break and you're thinking about what you might want, Hattie B's is a great option. Download the mobile app and you can get it ordered to your home or office. Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel has been covering fall camp for the University of Tennessee. How are you, bud?
I can't believe the Jeffrey Simmons thing is over. I was hoping to come on the show when that was still going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have I disappointed you?
Yeah.
Wait, who's that coming through the studio door?
Listen, Adam, I'm sure if you talk to him long enough, he would probably be interested in making another run at it, depending on the day.
I was on Tuesday. We're waiting for Josh Heupel to come into the room for his opening press conference to tell us about the team and camp and all that. And all of us are gathered around near the podium, all trying to look at the video and talk about the video that went viral. And we're like, Josh, could you stay out of the room for a minute? We're still trying to watch this for the 9th time. So I'm glad, from the reporter side of me, I'm glad that's taken care of. But the longtime listener in me was hoping that episode would go another couple weeks.
Well, I so appreciate your care and concern. Adam Sparks of KnoxNews.com here with us on 104.5 The Zone. I mean, just since we're there, Adam, like you've covered college athletes. It's obviously a much different dynamic. But that, from your perspective, how do you like take that in as a reporter? Because that's not. That's not journalism at its finest or anything like that, but it is a pretty unique situation to our jobs.
I've had guys yell at me before. Usually it happens at a press conference, though. Usually it's not in that setting. I actually was talking to someone who knew Jeffrey Simmons really well back at Mississippi State. I was talking to him today, and their take was smart guy, good guy, can give you a lot of stuff, but you don't need to interact with him coming off of the practice field. And so when they saw it, they said, yeah, you need Jeffrey 30 minutes later, not Jeffrey walking off the field, because that temperature has not come down yet. So that they were not surprised that was right on the corner of the field. You dealt with that well. I've never been on the air when something like that happened. That's sort of a different twist. I have done the one, like basically what you did, which is, where a player is like, come talk to me, and I'll say, we're talking right now. I've said almost those exact words to someone, and it's usually the reply you usually get is the one you got. Well, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's always like circular logic.
It was that, and we worked our way through it, and I appreciate Jeff for talking to me before practice, and we could hash things out. So now we have mutual understanding, and as you know, we move on. So with everything that's going on in Knoxville right now, beyond me providing your Tuesday entertainment, it sounds like, at Josh Heupel's press conference, what has been the general vibe? What's the latest on Brew McCoy as they try and get him back and acclimated into the system after the injury?
Well, day one of practice was yesterday. He went through warm-ups and then, stretching and all that, and then ran no routes. And we saw practice for like 30, 40 minutes. He didn't run a single route. He just coached the other guys, watched them. And then today he ran 2 routes, just like a couple little 7-yard hitches or whatever. And the second one he caught, I'm watching him the whole time to see, how are they ramping this up, his reps, and catches 2 balls, runs 2 routes, and then the second one he went over, took off his helmet, and kind of popped it up against the padded wall there in the indoor facility, obviously in frustration. And I thought, oh no, is he hurt? And he wasn't. I think it was just a reaction to the pitch count that they're putting on him. You get revved up, you're there, you're ready to go, and you run 2 routes and you're kind of done. And so you can tell how they're slow playing him into this, and he's a competitor. He wants to get there and go, and I'll be watching it each day, because if he's catching 5 balls, on Friday or whatever, the next day, Saturday's practice, and then it's 10, that's 20. Okay, then you're going to get pretty close to 100% Brew McCoy in the opener. But if they don't ramp it up a lot, then I will start to wonder maybe if Brew McCoy is a guy that's going to get in the mix as the season goes along, and not necessarily when camp goes along.
How intriguing is this conversation about the wide receivers at the moment, Adam? Because you hear Josh Heupel talking up Chaz Nimrod. Obviously, Squirrel White, there's an assumption that he will be a major threat for this team. But just all the different variables with Brew and his ramp up. And I didn't expect Nimrod's name to pop up the way that it has over these couple of days. Just what's the general outlook right now on the wide receiver room with all the options they have?
Yeah, we actually had a debate a little bit, but some of the UT press corps today on Nimrod. He's a great kid. He's works as hard as any player on that team. He's gained, 20 pounds of muscle or whatever in the weight room. All that being said, I don't know that I see it. I think he seems like a fall camp story, a guy that's worked his way into great shape. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're a high-end SEC receiver. I think he's okay. He's fine. I have questions about the wide receivers because Josh Heupel keeps saying this is the deepest group he's ever had. Now, one, I don't know that matters because he plays 3 or 4 receivers, so it doesn't matter what the 6th guy is. But I just question what's the difference. There's a difference between depth and balance. Like depth means your ones are really good and your twos are pretty good. Balance can mean your ones are decent and your twos are also decent. It just means like everybody's about the same. And I don't know which one this is. You think about the receiving corps 2 years ago, like Cedric Tillman was a number 1 in the SEC, a number 1 receiver. Jalen Hyatt was also a number 1 receiver. Brew McCoy was as good of a 2 as you could get. So that was a deep receiving corps, but especially a very talented one. The one I see now is, we'll see. I think the quarterback change would probably make the biggest difference, but Brew McCoy, if healthy, is really good. Dante Thornton is at a different position now. He wasn't very good last year at his new position. They think he'll be much better, but that's also a question mark. Chris Brazzell was really good at Tulane, but now he's moving up to another level. I think you've got Chaz Nimrod and Mike Matthews, the 5-star freshman, has not had his helmet on the last 2 days. I think there's some kind of minor injury there or something. But that's a question mark because he's a freshman. So there's 5 guys in this receiving corps that could be all SEC caliber players. They also could just be shoulder shrug, number 3 receivers. And I just don't know. I don't know which one they have right now.
Adam Sparks, Knoxville News Sentinel, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Read his work on the Vols at knoxnews.com. So you were at practice today. Sounds like practice was indoors due to weather. What were the takeaways? What did you see for the audience who's been very interested in the ramp up to this thing?
Yeah, a lot of the eyes right now are on the running backs. So like Peyton Lewis, we talked to him today. Peyton Lewis is the freshman who debuted yesterday at practice. He was here in the spring, but he had shoulder surgery after he enrolled. Cam Seldon, who was supposed to be the number 2 tailback. This is all behind Dylan Sampson, who'll be the starter. Cam Seldon has a red jersey on. He also had shoulder surgery back in the spring. Deshaun Bishop, who's the former Mr. Football here at Carnes in Knoxville, is right now running the 2s. And so I know that's a lot of names being thrown at, but basically they've got an all-conference caliber starter at running back in Dylan Sampson, and then they've got 4 guys who have barely ever played. And 3 of those 4 guys have been injured in the past 9 months. I mentioned Seldon is limited right now. I think he'll be limited early in the season too. I wouldn't expect him to be the number 2 running back in the opener, maybe not even the second game. Deshaun Bishop missed all of last year with an injury, so he hasn't played yet. And then Peyton Lewis suddenly, as a true freshman, coming off an injury, could be the number 2 running back in the opener, and that's a lot to put on a freshman. But they're trying to move him along very quickly. And we talked to him today. He completely understands that. He's coming out of he was really good in high school, but he was at an I formation, and now he's in spread and running tempo, and they're trying to figure out whether or not he can help them against Chattanooga in 3.5 weeks.
I didn't think we'd make it 10 minutes into an interview with you without asking a Nico question, so I will get my obligatory quarterback question in. What have they been working on specifically with him as they work their way through these first 2 days?
Just speeding up everything, which he's done a really good job at. I think the sort of the Nico 1.0 was what we saw in the Citrus Bowl, which was, running the offense pretty well, had some quick reads that he had to make. Nico 2.0, having gone through all this offseason, is, number one, understanding why the ball is going to a certain direction and just not that it's supposed to go there. Some coverages that he's going to see that are going to be mixed up, especially against SEC defenses. He's understood that a lot better. They've thrown some weird things at him so far. And a big one is understanding the run game and the protections. Joe Milton did okay at that. Hendon Hooker was phenomenal at that, about getting them in the right run play. And so they're trying to get him to that point and to help that run game and to help this offensive line. And they've been pretty pleased with how he's done it.
Adam Sparks of Knox News with us. So Nico was talking about the biggest difference for him from Citrus Bowl to now, just in terms of his comfortability. He talked about relying on instincts in that game. So you highlighting what they're working on with him, but are you seeing a substantial difference with him, whether it is physically or just how he's sort of going through his throwing motion mechanics, those type of things?
Yeah, physically he looks really good. I mean, he came in when he got to Tennessee, he was 190 pounds. He's 215 now, so he's starting to fill out and look more of the position. I think they've done a good job of letting him sort of like throw off platform a lot, which is what he was really good at in high school. Sort of that Patrick Mahomes type, like I'm going to throw it from different arm angles. I'm going to move around a lot. He's great at that. They've let him do that quite a bit. I think the big question now is how much is he going to run? Because in the Citrus Bowl, he instinctively knew when to get to the goal line, to tuck it and go, and he had three rushing touchdowns in that game. But the further they get into SEC play, he can't do that. I asked him a couple days ago about like sort of his demeanor in games, and he's very chill, very laid back. And he said, if I ever get mad, which I rarely do, if I'm ever mad in a game, angry, I'm not going to take care of my body. That's how you know I'm angry in a game. And so I said, so if you're running the ball too much and you're not sliding, he said, that means I'm angry. So you don't want Nico angry. You want him to be completely chill, to get rid of the ball, to not run it unless he absolutely has to. And so right now they're sort of trying to let him lean on his instincts to run the ball but not do it too much.
How do you see the new helmet communication impacting Tennessee's offense and its tempo? Could it help speed things up, or could it in a weird way hinder things when the quarterback's the only one getting those signals and it's not the hand signals from the sideline that we've typically seen? Or does it kind of have to be a hybrid of those things? How are they handling all of that?
I don't think they know, because I could see a lot of ways that it could be an impediment. The listening device in their ear, that'll be in Nico's ear, it shuts off at 15 seconds left on the play clock. That's as long as you can talk to the quarterback. Well, Tennessee usually snaps the ball before it gets to 15 seconds. Most teams are going to use this as basically, getting the play call in. That doesn't help Tennessee because they're no huddle up tempo. So you telling the quarterback the play, that just means he's got to go around and tell everybody else. So they're going to continue to do their hand signals so the receivers and the offensive line and the backs can get it. So that's not going to help Tennessee getting the play call in, except that you're just telling Nico instead of him reading the signals. I think the only thing that you could see Tennessee use that for is like that 5 seconds before the snap. Again, it's not going to be shut off for Tennessee because they work so fast. They'll still be able to talk in his ear when he's at the line of scrimmage. I think you could see some hot reads where, Nico may just hear 3 seconds before the snap, the Josh Heupel screaming squirrel, squirrel, squirrel in his ear, because that's where the ball's supposed to go. And so in that way, you're probably going to hurt his evolution as a quarterback, but you're probably going to help yourself within the game because that offensive coordinator up top, or Josh Heupel, probably the OC, Joey Halsley, can just tell him right before the snap where the ball is supposed to go in case he doesn't know. But it's a tricky thing, because you can slow the guy down if you're doing that too and make him overthink.
Did you cackle as hard as Lucas and I did when we saw the reports coming out of New England that Joe Milton is not only outplaying Drake May in New England Patriots practice, but throwing bombs down the field and then backflipping afterwards to the glee of the audience watching?
So I've got two sources on that. One, I've helped out one of the Patriots beat writers write some stuff on Joe, but in his immediate communication to me was they love Joe up here because he can throw it a mile and he's so athletic and big. I thought, I've read this story before. I think I've written this story a few times before. And then the other source is Joe's mom, who I'm Facebook friends with. And she posts a new video every day of him doing a backflip and fans loving it. And so it's a great training camp story. It's because he's got the biggest arm in football, or one of the biggest arms in football now that he's in the NFL. And he's got some fun, fan-friendly type things. Well, we'll see if it lasts. I'm glad that Joe is making a good amount of money as a third-string quarterback that does backflips and can throw it 80 yards in training camp. It's not a bad gig to get.
No, not at all.
A lot of recruiting momentum, Adam, in late July and in 2026 as we await the decision for Faison Brandon, the blue-chip quarterback. So Tennessee crawling into the top 10 of the 2025 class. Is there a barometer for you for 2024 on what this team needs to do, whether that's record or just what they need to show in order to keep that momentum going through the 2025 class to kind of, for the first time, get into that echelon in recruiting that they haven't quite been able to crack?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's different for every player and also the position because a lot of guys are waiting to see who leaves and stays and that sort of thing. Obviously, if Tennessee is a playoff team, if they're like a 10-2 type CFP team, then they'll keep this class together and they'll be top 10, probably top 5 for who they're still going to bring in the next few days. If they were to drop to like 8-4, then you could lose some of these guys. If you're 9-3, you're probably keeping it together. So I think recruits will probably react to this team how fans do, which is they expect 9 if not 10 wins. And if you're below that, then something's wrong. If you're at that, then you're sort of on the right trajectory. And that's sort of what I would expect too.
At Adam Sparks is where you follow him. KnoxNews.com is where you read him. Buddy, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for having some fun with us.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Keep an eye on everything that he's writing on the Vols from fall camp. Exciting.
Interesting. The helmet communication layer.
That's a good question by you.
It's very fascinating to me on how they're going to handle that. The fact,
it's such an afterthought to me in my head because I'm an NFL reporter. That's never not been a thing in my time covering 8 years of the NFL. And I can't imagine how much different it's about to be for not just players, but coaches to have to navigate that. I think it's good.
Well, especially in that offense. When you watch Tennessee at its best on offense, they're rushing to the line of scrimmage. Every helmet is turning to that sideline to see the signs and, all the symbols on the poster boards and the signs the coaches are making with the big black tarps behind it to block it from the press box and all those things.
You can just bark out one word, repeat the whole one word to the offense, and then run a play.
How do you marry those things when the quarterback is the only one getting that communication? Definitely something that they're going to have to work through, and clearly there are still a lot of questions to be answered in the wide receiver room in terms of who will be doing what and how that pecking order stacks up. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks coming up in Knoxville to see what this team's going to look like come week 1 against UTC.
615-737-1045, the number. Last call for phone calls. If you have them, we will update the polls and get you over to Blaine Bishop coming up next.